In this video, we are going to apply everything that you've learned in the last few videos about integers in mixed calculations. When a question consists of more than one calculation, it is very important that you do it in the correct order. You always start off simplifying brackets. After that, you do your powers and roots, then multiplication and division in any order, and finally addition and subtraction also in any order. Calculate the following. In number 1, we need to start by deciding which calculation to do first. In this question, we have a bracket with a power, and that is where we will start. So in the first step, the 2 plus 3 stays just like that, and minus 2 squared is 4. So we need to multiply by 4. Now we are left with addition and multiplication, so multiplication will be our next step. So this time the 2 stays just like that, and 3 times 4 is 12. Finally, I can add by saying 2 plus 12 is 14. In example 2, we once again have a bracket, and that is where we start. This time, however, the bracket is there because we need to simplify on the inside and then calculate the power. Inside the bracket, we have subtraction to do. So I'm starting on minus 1 on my number line and making it more negative with 2, and that will give me minus 3. This then has to be divided by the square root of 81. In the next step, I need to finalize the brackets simplification, and minus 3 cubed will give me a value of minus 27. This then needs to be divided by the square root of 81, which I can now also determine, and that is 9. Lastly, I can divide. Here we are dividing a minus by a plus, which means my final answer will be minus 3. In example 3, there are no brackets. But this time we have a power as well as a root that we need to determine. When doing the power, you need to see that the minus is not part of the power. Only the 2 is squared to give me minus 4. Before I can determine the square root, I need to simplify inside the root. And 9 plus 16 is 25. In my next step, I first need to determine the square root before I can do the multiplication. And the square root of 25 is 5. Now I can multiply, and a minus multiplied by a plus will be negative, and 4 times 5 is 20. In example 4, we now have a cube root as well as brackets. Remember that you always need to first simplify inside a root before you can calculate the root. In our examples case, I'm going to determine the first bracket by squaring minus 3 to get 9. Then you need to know that because no specific calculation is indicated between the two brackets, it implies multiplication. In my second bracket, I also need to simplify. And even though the inside is subtraction, I have to do this first because it is inside a bracket. This is minus 1 minus another 2, which will give minus 3. Now, before I can do the cube root, I first need to do the multiplication on the inside, which will give me minus 27. And finally, I can determine the cube root of minus 27. Remember that it is only a cube root that can have a negative value on the inside, and in this case the answer will be negative 3.